Atlanta's midnight rain fell in torrents, bouncing off neon lights and puddle-strewn streets. The airport hummed with the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, echoing footsteps, and the occasional murmur of travelers. Lila Moreno moved through it all like a ghost, dragging her battered suitcase behind her. Months of exhaustion weighed on her shoulders, pressing her into a state of numbness. She hadn't slept properly, hadn't eaten, and hadn't felt hope in months. Tonight, her fatigue was the only companion she had. Dante, the far end of the terminal. An empty bench beckoned. She dropped onto it, sinking into the cold metal with a shiver. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy and reluctant. The storm outside seemed distant, muffled by the terminal walls. For the first time in a long while, she whispered to herself, "Just for a moment, just a moment," and allowed herself to drift beside her. A man in a black suit sat perfectly still, a leather-bound folder in hand. His presence was quiet, deliberate, commanding. Dante Moretti, an empire of whispers and fear, a name that crossed continents, conjuring both awe and terror. Tonight, though, he was just a stranger. Lila's head fell against his shoulder, the exhaustion of months collapsing her defenses. "Please, don't leave me," she murmured in sleep. For a heartbeat, Dante froze. He was not accustomed to vulnerability, especially not from strangers. Yet something in her soft murmur stirred a sense of protection he hadn't felt in years. He draped his coat over her shoulders, a silent promise in the quiet terminal. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, time seemed to stop. Hours passed. The terminal emptied. Security escorted the last passengers toward their exits, but Dante remained. He watched over the sleeping woman, unaware that the encounter would alter both of their fates forever. When sunlight finally broke through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lila awoke to find herself not on a cold airport bench, but on a plush couch in a room of gleaming marble and gold accents. The man from the night before stood across from her, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Dante Moretti." Her voice trembled. "Where am I?" A lawyer stepped forward, his tone crisp. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti." The words froze her blood. Mrs. Moretti. Married. Lila's mind spun, trying to reconcile the memory of collapsing onto a stranger with the reality of her new life. Dante's voice cut through her panic, calm and firm. "You married me last night. At the courthouse. You signed the papers. You are my wife." Lila's knees nearly gave out. I don't remember." Every attempt to leave ended the same way. Doors, corridors, even the elevators seemed to bend her back toward him. Fear mingled with fascination. The man who should have terrified her now haunted her thoughts. Days passed, each one unraveling a little more of her old life while weaving her into Dante's world. She learned the rules quickly. Dante's control was absolute, yet measured. He did not mistreat her, but he dictated the boundaries of her new existence. Slowly, curiosity replaced fear. Curiosity grew into fascination. Fascination into an unspoken bond that neither dared to name. Then danger arrived. One evening, seeking refuge in a quiet cafe, a masked gunman confronted her. Her heart leapt into her throat. She froze, unable to move. In the next moment, Dante was there, a shadow of lethal precision. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the empty streets. The moment crystallized something unspoken between them. Survival meant relying on each other. Dante revealed the truth of their marriage. It was invisible to the world, perfectly legal yet unnoticed. Lila was not a pawn, merely a civilian companion. She was now the keeper of secrets, the one who humanized a man whose life was a fortress of fear and power. Fear became fascination, fascination became trust, and trust edged toward something deeper, though neither dared speak it aloud. Lila saw the scars beneath Dante's suit, each one a story of survival, betrayal, and loss. And she realized in the quiet moments that she was no longer merely a stranger in his world. She was the one who softened its edges. The days blurred into a rhythm of instruction, observation, and quiet tension. Lila awoke each morning to a world that was both dazzling and terrifying. The The sprawling Moretti penthouse gleamed under the Atlanta sun, its marble floors and polished glass a constant reminder that she was no longer the woman who slept on a stranger's shoulder in an airport terminal. Dante's presence dominated every room, every shadow. His voice, calm yet commanding, guided her through her new existence. At first, Lila felt like a prisoner. Every action measured, every movement watched. Not out of malice, but out of a precision that kept him alive. She learned which doors were locked and why, which hallways were under surveillance, and which moments were safe for conversation. Dante never forced her, but the sheer weight of expectation shaped her behavior. By observing him, she began to understand the invisible rules of power. It started small. A misplaced cup on a table could signal disrespect. A question asked at the wrong time could betray ignorance. But slowly, under Dante's quiet mentorship, Lila began to navigate these nuances. She learned to read expressions, to note subtle gestures, and to anticipate the moods of those around her. One evening, she followed Dante onto the balcony, rain-soaked streets stretching below like rivers of neon. The wind whipped her hair across her face, but she did not flinch. "You watch too much," Dante said softly, leaning against the railing beside her. "I'm learning," she replied, her voice steady. "I can't afford to be careless." He regarded her for a long moment, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Good. That means you survive." The lessons were not limited to observation. Dante involved her in small decisions. How to receive guests, how to respond to inquiries, how to maintain composure when under scrutiny. Lila discovered an unexpected aptitude for subtle influence. She learned to diffuse tension with words, to steer conversations without revealing her own thoughts, and to notice threats before they materialized. Each successful interaction bolstered her confidence, and Dante noticed. Romance lingered at the edges of these lessons, fragile but undeniable. A hand brushed hers while passing documents. A quiet moment over coffee stretched into shared laughter. A fleeting glance conveyed more than words could. Lila's heart fluttered unpredictably, confusing fear and desire, admiration and longing. Dante, too, recognized the change. The way his chest tightened when she entered the room, the way he found excuses to linger near her. Danger remained ever present. A rival gang, having discovered her identity online as the boss's wife, attempted an attack one rainy night. Lila had thought herself careful, but they struck when she sought the illusion of solitude, a cafe tucked in a quiet corner. She froze as a masked figure emerged from the shadows, gun raised. Her breath caught, then Dante appeared, as if the storm itself had bent to his will. He moved with the precision of a predator, disarming, incapacitating, disappearing before she could even comprehend his actions. Heart pounding, she realized that surviving in Dante's world required more than courage. It required vigilance, strategy, and trust. In the aftermath, Dante shared the truth behind their marriage. "You are invisible," he said, voice low and measured. "The world does not see you. Only I do. Only I know you are mine." The weight of that trust stirred something within Lila. She was no longer a passive participant in the story of her life. She was part of the machinery, part of the power. Slowly, fear transformed into fascination, fascination into understanding, and understanding into a quiet loyalty that rivaled anything she had ever known. Days turned into weeks. Lila's transformation became visible not just to Dante, but to those who served him. She could anticipate threats, navigate delicate negotiations, and act decisively when required. The girl who had once been exhausted and helpless now walked with a presence that demanded attention, though it was tempered by humility and observation. Yet the heart remained a delicate battlefield. Lila found herself thinking of Dante in ways that startled her. A brush of fingers, the way his eyes lingered on hers, the rare softness in his voice. Love, unspoken and potent, began to grow in the shadows of danger. She realized she did not just admire him. She needed him. The chapter of routine shattered when betrayal struck from within. Dante's most trusted lieutenant, a man who had long coveted power and influence, orchestrated her kidnapping. Bound and abandoned in a dark, empty warehouse, Lila's fear returned with full force. Shadows danced across the walls, her breath loud in the silence. "Please, don't let them hurt me," she whispered, her voice raw, and then, like a storm unleashed, Dante arrived. Gunfire cracked, explosions shook the structure, and the air burned with the acrid scent of smoke. He moved with lethal precision, each action deliberate, each step calculated. A bullet meant for her found him instead. Lila's world narrowed to the feel of his blood-stained hands in hers, the shallow, painful rhythm of his breathing, and the knowledge that she could no longer deny the depth of her attachment. Weeks later, in the quiet of his recovery, she held his hand, feeling the pulse of life she had almost lost. The ring he had given her was no longer merely a symbol. It held secrets, trust, and power. Dante had entrusted her with his life and the delicate threads of his empire. Lila whispered, almost to herself, "I fell asleep beside a stranger, and woke up beside the only man who ever saw me." The rhythm of their days shifted abruptly. The fragile security Lila had come to rely on shattering in an instant. One night, under the cover of darkness, she was taken. The betrayal came not from a rival gang, but from within, the very circle that served Dante loyally. A lieutenant, driven by jealousy and ambition, orchestrated her kidnapping with chilling precision. Lila awoke in a dark warehouse, bound to a chair, the cold concrete floor beneath her sending shivers up her spine. Shadows danced along the walls, punctuated by the faint dripping of water and the distant rumble of the city. Fear clawed at her chest. She struggled against the ropes, her hands raw, heart hammering in a rhythm of panic. Every instinct screamed for survival, yet she felt the weight of helplessness pressing down. She whispered into the darkness, almost prayerful, "Please, don't let them hurt me." The night stretched interminably, each creak of the building, each footstep outside, a reminder that her life was precarious. And then, like a storm bending reality itself, Dante arrived. He moved through the warehouse with lethal precision, a shadow among shadows. Gunfire erupted, echoing violently off the concrete walls. Explosions lit the darkness in brief, scorching flashes. Every step he took was calculated, every motion designed to protect her. Lila's fear mingled with awe, seeing the man who was simultaneously terrifying and magnificent, moving with an efficiency that seemed almost preternatural. A bullet, intended for her, struck Dante instead. Time slowed as she watched him falter, the weight of reality crashing down. She scrambled toward him, tears streaming, hands trembling as she pressed against his chest. The warmth of his blood against her palms, the ragged rhythm of his breath, grounded her in ways nothing else could. "You can't die," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not after you taught me what love is." His eyes, sharp yet softened by pain, met hers. "You're mine," he said, voice a fragile whisper of steel. The aftermath was a blur of hospital rooms, whispered reassurances, and quiet vigilance. Weeks passed as Dante recovered, and Lila remained by his side, learning not just to care for him, but to understand the weight of the empire he carried. The ring he had given her, once a symbol of sudden marriage, became a key to secrets. Hidden compartments, coded instructions, and evidence that could bring entire rival factions to their knees. The experience transformed her. Lila was no longer the frightened, passive woman who had collapsed on a stranger's shoulder. She became active, aware, and capable. Together, they began to navigate the treacherous landscape of power and loyalty. Each lesson brought them closer. Each shared glance or touch deepened their bond beyond words. Yet peace was fleeting. The jealous lieutenant who had orchestrated her kidnapping was not done. In the dead of night, Lila was taken again, this time with a taunting clue left for Dante, a personal signature of betrayal that stung sharper than any weapon. The city's alleys, slick with rain, became a labyrinth of danger. Abandoned warehouses, industrial ruins, and hidden passages formed the stage for a relentless chase. Every second was a race against time, every shadow a potential threat. Dante pursued her with unwavering determination, each step fueled by desperation and love. When he finally reached her, the reunion was violent, chaotic, and raw. Lila ran into his arms, her voice breaking. "You can't leave me." "I never will," he said, holding her tightly as if to fuse their lives into a single unbreakable thread. In the quiet that followed, amidst the smoke, destruction, and chaos, Lila discovered the microchip hidden within Dante's ring. It contained evidence capable of toppling entire rival factions, a tangible manifestation of trust, power, and shared destiny. He had entrusted her with life, love, and strategy, binding them together in a way that transcended the mere legalities of marriage. As the dust settled, they fled Atlanta, seeking refuge in a dimly lit safe house on the outskirts. Here, Lila fully embraced her new role. She observed, planned, and acted. No longer just a passenger in Dante's world, she became an ally, a strategist, a partner. Every lesson in diplomacy, strategy, and observation sharpened her instincts, bringing her closer to the man who had risked everything for her. Romance flourished in the spaces between danger. Quiet nights at the safe house became intimate lessons in trust, communication, and subtle affection. Lila learned not just to survive, but to understand, anticipate, and influence. Their bond solidified, a union forged by fire, betrayal, and shared vulnerability. And yet, the world remained dangerous. Each whispered threat, each rival faction's maneuver, reminded them that love in Dante's world was inseparable from peril. But Lila no longer faced that world in fear. She faced it with him, side by side, their hearts synchronized with a pulse of danger and devotion. The city of Atlanta lay beneath them, streets slick with rain and neon reflections glimmering like 1,000 broken stars. From their safe house on the outskirts, Lila and Dante watched the world with a keen awareness of predators and strategists. Danger was never far. Rival factions, ambitious enemies, and traitorous allies lurked in every shadow, but they had learned to move as one, two halves of a single force. Lila had grown beyond the frightened woman who once fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder. She could read intentions, sense threats, and act decisively. Dante had taught her, yes, but she had also learned on her own. Each calculated decision, each subtle maneuver, each whispered strategy drew them closer. Not just in purpose, but in heart, their love had matured quietly, without the fanfare of grand gestures. It was forged in fire, cemented by trust, and tested by betrayal. In moments of calm, when the safe house was still, they shared small intimacies. The brush of a hand, a lingering look, the unspoken understanding that neither could live fully without the other. Yet the world outside was relentless. One night, the jealous lieutenant returned, orchestrating a coordinated attack that spanned warehouses, abandoned docks, and city streets. Gunfire shattered the night. Flames licked concrete walls, and the metallic scent of blood mixed with rain. Dante and Lila moved in perfect synchrony. He leading, she anticipating, together a force unstoppable. Lila's instincts were sharper than ever. She disarmed traps, guided Dante through ambushes, and helped coordinate counterattacks. Each challenge they faced tested not only their survival but their bond. Every narrow escape, every calculated strike, deepened the intimacy between them. Fear had become trust. Danger had become shared purpose. To the heart of the chaos, Dante was struck again, but Lila was ready. With trembling hands steadied by determination, she applied pressure, retrieved weapons, and guided him to safety. In that moment, the roles shifted. She was no longer simply protected. She was his equal, his partner in war and love. When the dust settled, the city temporarily subdued, they returned to the safe house. Lila held the microchip hidden in Dante's ring, the key to dismantling entire rival factions. It was more than a symbol of trust. It was evidence of their combined power, a tangible link between their personal bond and the empire they shared. The quiet moments were bittersweet. Dante's face softened as he looked at her, pain and relief mingling in his gaze. "You've grown faster than I expected," he said. "I had a good teacher," Lila replied, a faint smile curving her lips. Yet she knew it was more than lessons. She had grown through choices, courage, and love. The city could wait, but their bond could not. In the flickering candlelight of their safe house, they allowed themselves vulnerability. Whispered confessions, the intertwining of hands and hearts, the quiet acknowledgement that each had become indispensable to the other. But life in Dante's world never stayed quiet for long. One morning, Lila awoke to find his side of the bed empty. Panic surged, but then her eyes fell upon the note on the nightstand, written in Dante's meticulous hand. "You're safer without me. DM." Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the note to her chest. The rain outside mirrored the storm within her. Yet she understood. Dante's absence was not abandonment. It was strategy, protection, a test of resilience. Lila had learned to stand, to act, and to survive on her own, even as her heart ached for him. She touched the ring on her finger, the microchip within, a reminder that their bond was more than physical presence. Love, loyalty, and shared power transcended distance. She whispered to the empty room. "You can't just leave me again, Dante. I'm ready now. I'm yours completely." Days passed, and Lila became the architect of her own strength. She monitored rivals, anticipated threats, and fortified their empire in his absence. The girl who had once sought refuge on a stranger's shoulder had become a leader, a strategist, a partner in every sense of the word. Then, one storm-laden night, the city's skyline reflecting in puddles on the streets below, Dante returned. Silent, commanding, but softened by the bond they shared. No words were needed. Their hands found each other, fingers intertwining, and in that touch, a world of promises, dangers, and unwavering love passed between them. Atlanta shimmered beneath them, rain-soaked, dangerous, alive. But in each other's arms, they were untouchable. Every threat, every betrayal, every storm had forged them into more than a couple. They were partners, lovers, and rulers of a world they shaped together. Lila looked up at Dante, heart steady despite the chaos around them. "I fell asleep beside a stranger," she whispered, voice trembling with emotion, "and woke up beside the only man who ever truly saw me." Dante smiled, the dangerous edge softened by affection. "And I will never let you forget it." The city might challenge them, enemies might rise, and storms might rage. But together they were unstoppable. Love, power, and legacy intertwined, bound forever in the lives of Lila Moreno and Dante Moretti.